And thank you for joining us on Monday's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. I am your host, Sharifa Hardy, and do I have yet another exciting show for you. Our guests have joined us not only to talk about what's going on in the world, but what they can do to help you in this time of crisis. Our first guest is Mr. Danny Kofke. He's a teacher and personal finance coach, and he's the author of 4 books, all discussing wealth. Good morning, Danny. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Doing all we can, right? Teaching from home. So what can you do?
I know, but you're using it as an opportunity to teach, where some people, not to judge them, are using it as an opportunity to sleep.
True.
Our next guest is Mr. Mickey Stonier, and he is a pastor. He's a professor. He's a chaplain. He specializes in child development, and he's going to talk a little bit about his new book, God is Now Here. Good morning, Mickey. How are you?
Good. Just an honor to be with you all and encourage you to really during this season to live with purpose and have intention. So.
Yes. I love your outfit. I can barely see it, but for some reason, I just feel like this whole backdrop is like, is really professional. You have your city, you have your badge.
Well, I figured women love men in a uniform, and so I just had to. But I'm actually doing some work for the fire department today, so I have to go into the hospital and see some people. So doing my job.
Well, I love it. And I have to join in on that little comment, because I always tell people I love a man in uniform. And you know why that is?
Why is that?
Because every man with a uniform at some point gets a paycheck.
Yes, they do. Except I'm a volunteer.
Just killed my whole theory, Mickey. I'm like, he has a uniform. Somebody pays him to wear that uniform. Yeah. So, yes. And so let me introduce our next guest, Mr. Andrew Giles. He is COO of FACT HVAC. He's a thought leader, and he also talks about how thought leaders can make an impact in this time. Good morning, Andrew. How are you?
Good morning. Doing good.
I like your hat.
Oh, thanks. Figure some shameless brand promotion would be good.
Well, that's all I do. That's all I do,
right?
Is shameless self-promotion.
This is the extent of my uniform these days, so it's kind of nice.
I don't know if that gets a paycheck, but I think with all the branding, eventually it will.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on today. Looking forward to hearing from everybody and kind of having a great discussion this morning. So thank you.
You are so welcome. We definitely are going to have a great discussion. And today we have an unusual pair that we don't always do this, but today we have a mother and son duo who's going to be joining us. And they're going to be talking to us about entertainment. They're going to be talking to us about marketing, branding, and how they get along as mother and son, and some of the tips, tricks, and they've learned during this quarantine. Yes, I mentioned that. Mr. Stephen McDow and Wanda Spence. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. So again, Stephen McDow is Miss Wanda Spence's son, and he is so proud of his mother. He talked about being the son of Wanda Spence, who is a SAG-AFTRA actress, and she's also has a history of entertainment. Wanda, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, my son, I would not have probably started with my creative side. I would have started my professional side, but we'll go that way. I have been an actress for the last 40 years with AFTRA, if you all remember, before the two unions joined. And now I'm a SAG member, and I've done film and I've done theater, and I'm also a visual artist. So I do paint, and I've had my painting to travel. Several of them that are hanging on someone's wall in somewhere in Europe, and 2 in Pennsylvania, I think. So anyway, I love acting. I love being a performer. I'm also in ministry as well. I'm a deacon and an elder in my church, and I love teaching Sunday school. So I've been a creative artist and teach creative art in the church as well. And I love the Lord, so I'm just so honored and blessed today to be a part of this panel, and know that we have to continue to say so many prayers and lift the prayers up to God, because people are hurting right now, and whatever we can do to be an encouragement.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it. I was just saying on Friday's show, and it's so interesting because all of the guests pick their own time, their date, their slot that works best for them. But I usually see that guests tend to somehow magically, miraculously, whatever you want to call it, tend to be a certain, in a certain industry, a certain group. And on Friday's show, we just had church. Everybody had some scriptures they wanted to mention or something they wanted to talk about. Even let's talk to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have over 30, well, not 30 years. I have over 10 years of experience with marketing and outreach. I've sort of coalesced that around this whole advocacy movement. I started out what they call the House of Medicine, which is, basically advocating for physicians and their needs at the State House. I did it there in California. I did it here on the East Coast in Maryland. And then I started being concerned about rural and urban America and the inequity that exists in both of those communities. And oftentimes the rift that people think that they have between rural and urban. But when you look at the underlying issues of economic access, the lack of access to broadband, and which leads to the lack of access to education, which is then the lack of access to building that economic foundation in your communities, all of it relates in terms of both urban and rural. So then I was blessed enough to move into the cooperative community. And I've spent the last 2.5, 3 years actually helping to build an inclusive economy, working with, helping to work with not only local elected members, but also as a group, advocating to federal members about how the cooperative enterprise is a fabulous sort of check for capitalism, and allow for the open access for those who are often marginalized to be able to tap into and create this idea of ownership, and what most people, my friends on the right, say bootstrapping, and even folks on the left. It's one of these communities that brings together everyone from all walks of life, because everyone is concerned about taking care of themselves. So I've been so happy. I've been lucky enough to speak internationally about the cooperative movement and how we need to improve trade school opportunities, as well as academic opportunities for those from rural and urban America. And we really need to do that around the cooperative principles and the cooperative movement. I'm also entrepreneurial, so I do lift up my mother. She talked about her acting side, but she's also an inventor. And we're currently working on, we can't talk too much about it, but we're currently working on a project. I'll let her talk about it later. And we're doing that around my normal work schedule. So I'm pretty much working 2 jobs now. So I'm just really happy, and I wanted to lift her up as well, because when this COVID-19 hit, we made a decision as a family with our property on Martha's Vineyard to give that money back to everyone renting. So we can get into that later as well. So I wanted to lift her up, because she first thing she said is, you know what, we need to be concerned about the people that live there and about everyone. And right now is not the time to worry about money. We need to care about people. So that's why I put that hashtag people over profit, because that's what it's about.
Oh, I love it. That was a lot of information, especially for someone like me to take in. I need to pick it apart. No, it's fine, but I need to pick it apart into little pieces. It's not my brain explodes. So I want to go back to what you were saying about the co-op community. When you say the co-op community, and you spoke a little bit about the principles, what are some of the principles of the co-op community?
Well, ones that really resonate is concern for community. It's voluntary member participation. It's and those are the ones that really sort of resonate especially concern for community. The idea of the cooperative enterprise is a completely sort of grassroots, bottom up business approach where workers in some instances have ownership equity in a business. But then also we see farmers in, small and mid-sized family farmers coalescing around this idea of cooperative enterprises as well. That's why you have folks like Land O'Lakes. You have people like Ocean Spray. These are small, mid-sized family farmers who get together and they work under one brand. And then you see it in the urban communities where you see worker-owned coffee shops. You have, I believe it's Arizmendi up in Oakland, which is a baking cooperative. And you also have folks who are working like in Philadelphia. There's a Latino returning citizen cooperative in Philadelphia called Mexicon. And these are folks who are building economic opportunities, not only for themselves, but then also impacting their communities. So yeah, concern for community is probably one of the greatest principles, in the cooperative movement.
So with everything you're doing with your movements and your 15 different jobs, how has COVID-19 affected you? What are some of the transitions you had to make in order for you to stay operating during these times?
Well, I think, since transitioning from like sort of a national advocacy association, which was National Cooperative Business Association, CLUSA, and to KDC, where I am now, I've always worked from home. But how I've transitioned is I've spent a lot more time personally calling Amish farmers, personally calling folks in urban communities, letting them know, you know what, there is relief out there, especially when PPP and the EIDL first came about. I mean, there were individuals who needed help with applications. I offered guidance on that. Anytime there was confusion, I was on the phone with my contacts at the SBA. I even had a friend call me who wasn't a business owner, who lived in Pennsylvania, who her husband lost 25% of his income. She's an occupational therapist and couldn't work. And she's like, Stephen, I you know what, I need help. So I got on the phone with all of our elected members in the state of Pennsylvania, where she lives, and called their staffers, because we do have relationships with them. And I started figuring out ways that they could help, at least, move her along. And so that's what I've been spending majority of my time doing, is really just reaching out to people, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of phone calls. And it's been very exhausting, long hours, but it's been a lot of fun.
I love it, Wanda. I want to say to you, job well done. You raised an excellent son here.
I'm so proud of him. I tell you, and not only him, but my mom helped raise him too. So, but anyway, I'm so proud. And it hasn't been easy. I was a single mom for a long time, but I think God led it. God blessed it, and God has led. And the more I keep my faith grounded in the Lord, the more I know that my son and my grandchildren and my nephews, anybody who's connected, my brother's a pastor too as well. So it's just important to prayer, and you get results like that. And and nobody's life is easy, but I'm so proud of him, and he helps so much now. I mean, I thought I used to be this real energized person. I can go get things done. Oh, yeah, I got it made. But let me tell you, honey, there's a time when Lord says you need to slow down. So guess what? He helped me so much. So I'm like,
well, he sounds like a pastor of a different kind. He sounds like he's pastoring people all over the country.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, and you also work together on your business. What are some of the steps that you've taken to to expand as a result of this change?
Well, outside of being, an actor, they always say, don't leave your current job, and so as a performer, it's been a road. And, but I'm also an administrator. I'm also administrative at heart. I've been in project management, program management, typically all my life, finance. I've been, CFO, I've done director's jobs. I've done different things like that in my career. And I'm also done bookkeeping. So I have gone through and I've been this entrepreneurial spirit for a long time. In my art business, I've always got these little things I was starting and getting, got to get going. But my career and being a mom and working every day was, took precedent. And so now I'm an inventor and I have a US patent. I have been invited to submit a proposal through the National Science Foundation. And you don't know what it is. I want to encourage, if I can encourage the world, but many people sit back and think that they don't have the capability, they don't have the talents, but I know Andrew, Danny, and Mickey, correct? And Steve, all of you, and you, ma'am, we all have this innate ability of creativity in us. And if we could just tap into it, many people come up with ideas every day. You look at the television and see how many inventions are on the market. But mine is taking a path right now where it's going to go through a research and development process because I want it to be a solid product. I just don't want to I want to help people in what I've done with this medical device era. I want to be able to help seniors, help people that are physically challenged. So I look forward to that. And I tell you, and so now I really feel this entrepreneurial spirit rising up and knowing that I, as well as you, making a difference with your show and each one of these gentlemen. I'm so excited to be on here, a bunch of men too, because women are always together, aren't they? It's like hearing what men have to say. It is so important because they are leading, and I want to follow good man because good men follow Christ. In that sense. So anyway, I don't want to over talk, but you know what I mean? I appreciate that.
No, you're not over talking. I was feeling the movement. I was feeling the moment. I was feeling the spirit move. I love what you were saying. I love how excited you are and how passionate you are. And one of the expressions that I always say is that there are cemeteries full of multi-million-dollar ideas, which basically means that people usually take their ideas to the grave. So whenever I see someone who even decides to take an action to make it work, I definitely applaud them.
Mm-hmm.
Wanda, I love that comment. There's an old saying, behind every good man is a surprised woman.
Never heard that version, Mickey. Why? I'm kind of scared to ask, but why is she surprised?
Because behind every man is a surprised woman. My wife is always surprised the things I am involved in.
Wow.
For me, I'm a trauma specialist, and so my PhD is actually in psychology, compassion fatigue. So I deal with a lot of hardship, and so I work with the firefighters and police after they've been exposed to horrific events. I was at 9/11 for the first 2 weeks because I was part of the response there. But, Stephen, you mentioned building community and a thought came to mind. Are you familiar with the term communitas? It's an anthropological term and it's really what you're doing. I encourage you to look into this.
Yeah, look that up.
There's a term called liminality, which we're going through as a culture. Liminality, when there's shifts in culture and it kind of unsettles people. And people generally, this happened to me, I experienced this at 9/11. You have people of all different backgrounds, all different nationalities, all different faiths. And we always talk about community, we need to build the community, but also our community. Mm-hmm. Churches are all about community and building relationship, but there's something more powerful, which I know for those of a Christian faith, which is at the heart of the gospel, is that when the mission supersedes really the purpose of you being together, that people from different backgrounds, different walks of life pull together with a rich unity for the sake of fulfilling a mission to love humanity. And I experienced this at 9/11 because I was with people from all different faiths, different backgrounds, but we were united in our efforts to comfort people, and differences didn't matter. Love is what mattered. And so it brings people together for the sake of a broader perspective. And I believe that's a situation we're in right now. as we come together for the sake of a greater good for others. So just like you and your mom caring for the finances of renters, it's an element of communitas. You've forsaken your needs for the sake of others. And it's just a beautiful time. But know this, in tragedy, trauma, disaster, things shift over time. Right now, we're in this kind of we're shifting already. You're going to transition. You're going to see culture shifting towards anger, blame, fractured community, people mad at other people, and you're going to start seeing protests and things like this because people get unsettled. Okay, we've been helping everybody else, but what about me? And so we don't want to go there. And so I just applaud you and what you're doing in the concept of communitas is being lived out. So,
well, sir, if we don't continue to be the light of the world, because that's what Christ wants us to do, then because in all that darkness, we need to be that light that shines, and let people know that it's okay. It's going to be all right. Don't panic. Go back to some of the old school things that people used to do. People worry about running out of toilet paper, but guess what? There are washcloths in your bathroom. And so you know what I mean? And I'm sure, Andrew, you're a dad, and with a young child. I'm not sure about Danny and how old your children are, but I have grandchildren and nephews, and so I'm just saying there are many things that our ancestors and our fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers before us did that they didn't have all this modernized stuff. And so, you know what I mean? But just ministry itself and just being a light. So
at the Rock Church where I serve in San Diego, and because of our engagement with culture, we're involved with police, fire, Office of Emergency Services. We have like 150 chaplains out in the community, hospitals and everything. When this started to unfold, those relationships start to grow, connect for better opportunities to serve. And so the county actually of San Diego contacted us. Hey, we have 350 N95 masks that have expired. They need to be retrofitted. Can you mobilize people safely within the health restrictions and distancing? And so we've been retrofitting 300,000 masks, and then we became the drop-off site for other PPE equipment. And then the blood bank has asked, hey, could we use your sites for the blood bank? And we're working with Salvation Army. We're doing these feeding groups, and it's like you said, it's really not, we don't want to take advantage of people suffering, but we want to be the light to the world and be the answer to people's suffering. And so, I could do a shameless plug for my book here, because God is now.
Talk about that.
But I want you to read the title
hold it there
first.
For a minute. Just hold it. Yes, go ahead.
Read the title.
God is nowhere.
No.
God is here.
God is
now here.
God is now here.
Oh, yes.
That's provoking. That's thought provoking. And that's
I like that.
You can read it two ways. And in trauma, people sometimes come to the conclusion, where's God? There's no God. God is nowhere. But there's something called post-traumatic growth. We all know PTSD, but PTG is when trauma hits, people start to reflect on their values, their worldview, and what I believe. And a lot of people, actually, over a third of the people, come to faith growth during times of hardship. And so it's, God is now here. I have a friend that always makes fun of me, though, because he says, well, it can also read, God, I snow here. So I guess that's for people in Canada and Michigan and Maine.
Not in Long Beach, California. Interesting. I want to discuss your book a little further, but I want to go over to Andrew for a minute, because one of the things that you speak about and that you talk about is thought leaders and working with the thought leaders. And that's one of the things that I've been focusing on, is the influencers, the people who have a voice to speak out to the audience and say, this is what you can do. This is how you can help. What are your thoughts on what's going on in today's world?
So what's interesting is I'm in the trades, obviously. So I own a company called Fact Industries. And one of our companies is Fact HVAC. So it's a heating and cooling company based in Arizona. And when we started the company a year and a half ago, we set out to do something very different, right? We looked at the industry as a whole and identified some key vulnerabilities in it, some opportunities that we could disrupt it in a way that would benefit the employees, the way that it would then benefit the consumers. And so just one of the big things that we did was we took a lot of tradespeople are now put on a commission basis. They're given a low hourly wage and put on a sales commission strategy, right? So when they go into a home, all they're trying to make their money, they need to support their families. So that puts them in a sales mindset, right? But a lot of these people go to trade schools because they have an acumen for mechanical trades, right? They're not salespeople. And so a lot of them struggle. We see a lot of bouncing around employers and unemployment because of people losing their faith in the trade. So when we founded the company, we said, we're going to get away from that. We decided to pay all of our technicians and employees, even the office staff, a high living wage, right? That would allow them to support themselves, to be professionals, to be craftsmen, right? So that was the concept. And that's very, very different from what we see in the industry as a whole. Now, what that has done and the way it's transitioned into this time, especially with COVID-19, is we put our employees first, right? These people are going into people's homes every day, multiple people's homes. They don't have to worry about making a sale so that they can have their paycheck to support their families. So that's a huge load off of them because consumers now are more concerned about, well, here in Arizona, they have to have air conditioning, right? It's going to be 95 degrees this week and it's going to be hot. So it's an essential service. And so homeowners are concerned about how they're going to make it through. They don't want to be worried about being sold. And so we've created this narrative of they don't have to worry about that. It's customer service first mentality within our technicians, but that starts with us as a company supporting them. We made the transition really quick because we identified, my partners and I identified the situation that was presenting itself, right? That we understood that this was going to be a big deal. COVID-19 was going to affect a lot of people. And we were able to make the transition and ensure that our technicians in the field had the proper PPE well in advance. We weren't playing catch up. I'm part of several groups, and there were a lot of service people and service CEOs that were kind of dismissing it, that, oh, this will come, this will go. And now they're trying to play catch up while we were kind of ringing the alarm of be prepared now, because your technicians are going in. I mean, my guys are going into 7-8 homes every day. And then they go into their home with their families. And so to make sure that they're well protected in this time was huge for us. So what was interesting is, the three foundations of our company are safety, trust, and really helping others. And that's kind of a nice theme that I'm seeing through everybody here today. And that was what we built the company on. We wanted to go in such a different direction because we viewed the industry as rife for disruption, right? The trade industries are huge and everyone's kind of following the same path. And we truly believe that by disrupting the fundamental core values of the industry, we can be that disruptor within the service industry, not just within heating and cooling. And then now with COVID-19 hitting, those pieces that our company is built upon are really resonating. Our consumers and our customers feel safe. They're so thankful that our technicians have been well trained in proper PPE and social distancing. The technology that we deployed in our company when we started allows people to really have limited contact with us. So just really driving that thought process of how do we build these companies that can support the technicians, the people who work inside of our office, our customer service staff, being able to transition to work remote jobs for our entire office staff quickly was huge for us. So that's kind of been my goal from day one. And it's been nice to see our entire team kind of coalescing around that movement of how do we push the industry forward? How do we get 10 times better every month, right? It's that 10 times growth mentality. And so it's been awesome. So that's kind of my goal within my industry, is kind of being that thought leader, challenging the existing and the norm to better everyone around us, right? It's an anecdotal, or I shouldn't say anecdotal, but it's a well-used, motto of a rising tide lifts all boats. And sometimes that's thrown out very flippantly, right? Just, oh yeah, but that's how we truly feel. All of our staff are well paid. They're incentivized on their performance and their professionalism, not on just revenue creation, not just having a sales first mindset. And so we see how that's allowed our team to come together in this time and really push them to be thought leaders within the company. How do they improve their individual position by 10 times? How do we continue to push the ball and move those rocks forward as a company? And we see it resonating with our customers. So it's been awesome. And it's great to be around so many people, outside of my industry, because that helps push me. And so, it's been great. And that's kind of my desire as the COO is, how do we find those opportunities to challenge the norm?
Well,
I want to be a chaplain for him. How do I become a
That's my
chaplain?
line, Mickey.
And
Mickey, you took my line. I was about to say, where do I apply? Because I
know.
wages.
You need a prayer. You need a prayer group.
Well, I want to go work. I want to work for Stephen now. I just you guys are doing amazing things. That's awesome.
Well, you know what's interesting? To go back, there are 7 principles that cooperators live by, and I mentioned 2, but there's also voluntary and open membership, but member economic participation, autonomy and independence, and then also education and training, and then cooperation among cooperatives. Like, I heard, was it Andy, talk about many of those principles, and he didn't even realize it. It sounds like you guys are ready to convert to being a cooperative at some point.
Or at least put another arm on his business, and he can branch into that and another avenue.
Yeah, people are doing that too. It's funny in this day and time, people are looking for ways, efficiencies as they call them. I have one fiber optic company who wants to start a worker co-op for field techs throughout the whole country, because so often those individuals, it sort of ebbs and flows, their jobs, they have jobs and then sometimes they don't, and the jobs can be anywhere around the country. So if they start a cooperative altogether, they'll work all the time throughout the entire country. So yeah, that's what the world is turning to. And I think, Mickey, you mentioned, I think people are really coming together now. And I feel it in my, just deep in my being that, I think we're starting to realize that, what, it's not about those external forces that you mentioned, protesters, what people say, but it's about what the community says and how we can work together and to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, especially in the service industry and home services. So, services can mean lots of different things, but within the home services industry, we see a lot of people going into the trade schools still. There is a huge group that are still going in there. And a lot of it is, we see a lot of minorities going through the trade schools. And especially in Arizona, we see a large Hispanic population going through the trade schools. And they're being taught really good trade principles, how to be good technicians, how to service things. But what they're not taught, and this is the huge disconnect in the industry, they're not taught sales procedures. They're not taught how to become marketers for a brand or for a company, right? And so when they get then put into these businesses that tie their income to sales, there is a huge disconnect. And a lot of people get dissatisfied with the industry. They leave, which could be a very high paying job for them. One of the things that one of my partners who comes from the venture capital world, what got him involved with us is the home services industry is not something that's going to be automated anytime soon, right? We don't have robots that can go out and fix your air conditioner yet. And so there's still huge growth opportunities in here. And so by creating the brand the way we did, we're allowing these people who come out of trade schools to focus on just being that, to support their families with these trade educations that they're getting. So they don't have to go massively into debt to provide a living wage and a good wage for their household. And so seeing some of these guys that are coming through, that's what excites me, is being able to put them in a position that builds them up, allows them to see the opportunities that are there and to really see that there's a different way of doing things.
I love it. I definitely love it. I don't, Danny, are you with us? Do we lose you? I haven't gotten an opportunity. We just got to talking. You know what I mean? I asked everybody to talk, to have a conversation, and then we just kind of left you out. How are you?
Oh, I'm well. I'm well. It's a little difficult right now. I'm a special education teacher, so it's hard teaching from home. But hey, it could be worse, right? So I'm fortunate to have a steady paycheck coming in. But I do have to say, I love what Andrew just said about the trade schools. As a teacher for so long, I mean, we've done our kids wrong by saying you have to go to college, and that was the push for so long. So it is really enlightening that a lot are going into the trade schools because we need them, and not everyone needs to go to college. So I think that's great. But I know, you know, for me, right now, this whole experience, and I've written 5 personal finance books. My first one was way back 15 years ago. And it just kind of solidifies what we're going through is that we have to take control of what we can. Even before this hit our country in February, 50% of Americans were living paycheck to paycheck, right? It's still, even after the Great Recession, after all the things that we've gone through. So to me, it just kind of solidifies that we can't control so many things in life. I mean, this virus came from a bat in a place none of us had ever heard of, right? For many until now. And it just to me shows that we have to take control of what we can control. You know, God has only promised us our last breath, right? So there's certain things that we really, to me, it just kind of opens up like, once we get through this, and we will, I feel hopefully we'll be stronger as a country and kind of learn from this, but we have to do better with our money because then we are able, we're in this together. And, you know, and those people that do have money right now, it's nice that they're able to support some others that don't. But I hope as a society that we are a little bit stronger coming out of it and that we do kind of pay attention a little more to how we are spending our money. Mm-hmm. And we have kind of been given, you know, I don't want to say for a lot of people that are sick, it's a horrible time. But for many of us, it's this opportunity to reset. And we can kind of really reprioritize what is important in our lives. We've been forced to stop. We can no longer, many of us can no longer work. So I think it's really a great opportunity if we take it to kind of see, okay, going forward, what really is important in our lives and focus on those and not kind of what our neighbor thinks is important and trying to keep up with them.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That was well said, Danny, well said. Now you said that you are a special education teacher. Yes. Are you teaching students from home? Are you still are you doing classes via Zoom? What is life like now for you?
Right. I mean, it's really difficult for me because the students I teach here in Georgia, it's called profound. So basically their IQs are under 20. So tube feeding, changing, a lot of physical needs. So for me, what I'm doing is I just email my parents every single day and tell them kind of, okay, can you please work on this with your child today? Just because with a lot of them, if they don't stand and they have special machines to help them walk, if they don't do that now, I mean, we could be going 5 months without them doing that. It's kind of like all the hard work that they've been doing for years could kind of, they could go backwards. So that's kind of what I'm doing is just staying in touch and trying to encourage them, you know, so it is a little bit more difficult for me. I mean, I have 2 daughters, 15 and 12, and they're doing normal schoolwork and their teachers send them assignments and they're able to do that. But for my students, a little more difficult since a lot of them have the physical needs, but just, you know, just doing all I can to help.
Oh, that's so awesome. Wonderful.
I had a question, Danny.
Yes.
I know you say that it's a challenge. Is there a possibility with those parents who have computers at home to even be a sort of a coach to the children? If they put it like we're on the screen right now and, you know, if the parent brought it up and then they see your face and then they, you know, that would say, at least will still give you the opportunity to stay in touch with the child and see them and they can see you. You know, depending on whatever their physical challenge is. I'm just wondering how you could, you know, connect that way as, you know, outside of just sending the note to the parents. Had you thought about that?
Yeah, and actually too, what I've done some is I'll record myself reading a book to them. So I kind of put it on a video and then I send that to the parents. Not all of them, it's kind of difficult for some of them. Not all of them have the computers. It's, you know, we kind of living in a little lower socioeconomic status. So just, you know, a lot of them have the phone. So I know that they can see my face. So yeah, so I try to record myself reading books or just little messages just so they can kind of see me.
we've been trying to think about that with our Sunday school and how we can do, because I teach children's church and with the creative arts and everything. So we want to get on Zoom with them too, and encourage their parents to keep studying with them and doing. So anyway, I was just wondering, because that was, that I know can be a challenge right now.
Yes.
Yes, and Danny, your industries have both been hit hard with this pandemic. You're a teacher that's affected the teachers, but also as an author, your books are about wealth. And right now, I don't know if it's just me, but wealth and money and finances is the one thing most people don't want to talk about.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure. Most people, I mean, they are struggling. And, for me, actually on the side, I do financial presentations too. So that has kind of stopped right now. So, kind of what I have been interviewing on a couple shows because people are struggling. But basically, if you're out of a paycheck, then the main emphasis right now is what to focus on. And, it kind of goes back to our basic needs, the shelter, the clothing, the food. Those are the things to focus on for a lot of people. And that's kind of, just to kind of give people a sense of hope right now, because a lot of people are struggling. And I get that. I mean, now's not the time to worry about your retirement savings. We're worried about this week. So yes, the financial industry, it's definitely taken a little bit of a pause and we have to focus on some other things. But to me, once again, I think these are things that we should have been focused on for a long time. So my hope is that we come out of this and like people really say, okay, I've got to get a little bit better with my money, because if this happens again, I don't want to be in this same situation. And I likened it before I was a teacher. I taught at a pre-K, and there was this little 3-year-old and he would climb up the slide every day. I'd be like, don't climb up the slide. Don't climb up the slide. Never listen to me. One day he climbed up the slide, he fell down, bumped his head. You know what? He never climbed up the front of the slide again. So unfortunately, I think some people, money is that way as well, that it takes like a bump in the head. It takes a little bit of a tough thing to go through, but then they say, you know what? I am never going to allow myself to be in that situation again. And I think being the optimistic person that I am, that's kind of what I hope happens when all this settles and people come out of this, that they say, you know what, I'm going to do better with my money. And then if we are ever in this situation again, then, I mean, they can give back and they can help people, because if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's really hard to try to help anyone else out when you're just worried about feeding your family.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that you bring that stuff up, Danny, because one of the biggest things with crisis management is to identify your vulnerabilities. I think that's what a lot of us never, even as business owners, we weren't looking at the vulnerabilities before this happened. And I think that'll be a nice mindset shift for a lot of people is, and we did that as a partnership within our company, is we had to identify quickly where our vulnerabilities were in order to make sure that we could use this time to still grow, to still hit our goals and do our things. And I know personally, I didn't live that way. It was kind of that, next day in front of me method and, planning way out. But I think a lot of people now are going to be looking at the vulnerabilities within themselves personally in their finances and even in their mental state, but also within businesses. Those businesses that will succeed and thrive through this are those that will look at where their vulnerabilities are. How do they plan? How do they keep their teams going and things like that? And so I'm with you. I'm optimistic. There's a lot of people that aren't, but I think for the most part, I think the people that will come out of this will be those leaders in their different spaces. More millionaires were made during and after the Great Depression than ever before in history, right? And this is a time that those who take the lead, those who have the right mentality, who are putting others' needs in front of them. Conscious capitalism is something that I believe in, will be the ones that lead the future industries that personally will be able to come out far better than where they were when this all happened. So that is awesome. And thank you so much for your hard work as a special education teacher. I have a family who have special needs individuals within it. And so just your dedication and effort to that is awesome, man. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Mickey, you wanted to comment on that?
No, I just, I appreciate Danny's heart.
Aww.
Amazing. Sorry you live in Georgia. I'm just, no, I'm just kidding. You love it there.
I understood that because I'm in Long Beach, California.
Yeah.
So I apologize as well. But Mickey, I want to go back to you in your book. Again, if you want to put your book back on the screen, God is now here. And you
Mhm.
spoke about 9/11, you spoke about the tragedies and just coming together. What motivated you to actually write the book? And what are some of the lessons we can take away from it?
Oh, wow. That's a lifetime.
Oh,
Yeah, just real quickly, I grew up in a law enforcement family, and my mom got very sick when I was young. I was the youngest of four. My siblings all called me a mistake. My parents said it was an accident, but I was born later in their life.
mhm.
And when I was 8, she got very sick and actually had cancer. She passed away when I was 12.
Oh, sorry to
And
hear.
then my big sister, who is 4 or 5 years older than me, she was my best friend. She took on kind of that mothering role as a 12-year-old, and having a 17, 16-year-old sister. She would drive me everywhere. But she was 3 years after my mom died, she was killed in a car accident.
Mm.
Oh, wow,
And
I'm
so
sorry to hear that.
you kind of go through life like this, and trauma makes you either bitter or better. And for me, I just had this heart to help people. It just kind of grew within me. I didn't come to faith till I was in college. I came to faith by actually just reading the New Testament. Wasn't religious or anything. I just figured there's got to be more to life than this. And so I was on a quest, just where are you, God, in the midst of this? And so my life has really been the whole title of my book, God is Now Here versus God is Nowhere. But one thing led to another. I started helping in the fire department in San Diego through a death of a firefighter. They asked me to be a chaplain to kind of help at times like this. I was in my PhD work, and so I studied trauma and how it affects people and how it affects their family. And there's a term called compassion fatigue. When you give emotionally, give, you get depleted, and it actually can have negative effects on your family. But there is what's called compassion satisfaction. It's that honor you feel when you help people. It's just, your problems are put aside to help other people. And so within the fire department, we have what we call the 4 F's: faith, family, friends, and fire department. And the whole concept is the fire department will have great employees if their core faith, family, and friendships, and so are really set as a priority. And I want to honor all of you, because you are amazing people, and all that you're doing to contribute to other people. And at our very core, though, is, what do you believe about the world and destiny and purpose and meaning? It's got to be more than just a paycheck. There's more to life than just the physical. It's the virtues of caring and loving our fellow human beings. And so it takes us to the core of our faith. And then right now during COVID, you talk about vulnerabilities. It's like families are really having to deal with, boy, he's home a lot right now, or she's home a lot right now. And there's this adjustment going on. For some, it's not going well. They're needing help. My youngest daughter is actually a therapist, and she works in trauma and stuff, and does all her appointments online. And so her clientele is growing, because people are really needing help navigating through this. My oldest daughter has a champagne business. So we service all needs. If therapy doesn't work, then maybe champagne will. She has
Maybe you combine them, you know what I mean? You sit on the couch, drink the champagne, and talk about your problems.
Well, it's called We Drink Bubbles. And it's just a beautiful business for organic, and it's really just a beautiful concept. She loves life. Well, she has, to help the medical staff, she has it's called Savor the Moment Challenge, where she teaches how to savor a bottle of champagne, and it's doing really well. They're raising money for feeding nurses and doctors and everything. But all these Instagram posts on We Drink Bubbles, where people are savoring champagne bottles for the sake of others. So, it's trauma, again, can make you bitter or better.
Mhm.
And it's times like this, I'm sitting with an audience of remarkable people. Panelists, and I'm sure your audience too are remarkable. It's when the world's uncertain, rather than pulling back and being totally self-focused, you start to look out, hey, what can I do for other people? And be a source of support and help for my neighbors, for my, today I'm going to the hospital because I have access to hospitals as a chaplain. This young man has got Crohn's. He's just a teenager, but his parents can't go see him. And one thing led to another. Someone reached out to me that I could go and connect. So I'll be in my fire uniform. Kids love firefighters, but he's going through a real painful time. And I could hunker down and just, take care of myself. But I think all of you share that same virtue. There's no greater commandment than to love God and love people.
Love thy neighbor. That's
And
right.
so if we do that, let's do that well. And thank you for your show too. What an amazing show to collaborate together with great ideas, great people.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for joining me. I definitely appreciate you. I want to go over to Wanda for a minute. And one of the things that I believe you or Stephen spoke about is what you're doing for the properties in Martha's Vineyard. One of the things that people have been discussing is, during this time, some people do not, I guess, have to pay rent or have to pay certain bills, but they've been advised, if you can, to go ahead and pay them, because once all of this over, many of them are going to be due in full. What are your thoughts on that, and what have you set up, Wanda?
Well, you mean as far as the vineyard is concerned and the real property? Yeah, well, it's interesting that we have to pay the bills. And even as, that being our secondary, a secondary property, it has to keep itself up. It has to, taxes are due. The electric bill still has to be paid, and the insurance has to be paid on the property. And so it's not easy. And, we are modestly, have income. And so to have to cut that income off, it is a tension there. You feel it, but I give God all the glory, because those people many of them thought that they could come from all over and go to the island. And, oh yeah, we're going to escape to the island because there's nothing up there. Nobody's sick up there. Well, guess what? That island ended up having about 8 people who got infected, and who knows what the status is right now. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person came from somewhere and got it, because many of them are commuters, but still, again, as a homeowner and what we're doing, it became more important to know that I'm not going to contribute to anyone coming up there, getting sick or whatever, that it's, there's another year coming and we'll get back on the list and we'll open it back up, and whatever happens. I mean, at this point, we don't know what the future holds, but it was just more important to do that. But again, as a family, we feel the strain because you still have to pay the bills to keep the property going and keep it at least, contained, so it'll be okay. So forth. But it's okay, because you know what? At the end of the day, it's God has given us as my individual health and life and sustainability and being able to be healthy so I can help others is far greater than worrying about a house. Because guess what? I didn't come here with anything, and I'm not leaving with anything. That house is going to sit there as long as it's okay, long after I'm gone. You know what I mean? And so I'm just very passionate about that. My Stephen can tell you about some of the comments and things that happened, because it was a struggle for people. They were mad because you were giving them their money back. I mean, who's going to be mad if you refund their money? But seriously, they were like, you're interrupting my holiday, my vacation. Why are you giving me my money back? So it's interesting the way people's minds have gone. But I guess by now they have come to the realization that the choice that we made was right. So I think Stephen can speak on that a little more.
I mean, like as soon as the decision was made to refund everyone, and we use Verbo or VRBO to, manage the reservations up there with, contractors, of course, who help do some of the more operational type work on the ground. But when I started contacting the list of summertime or weekly tenants, they literally looked at me and said, "It is not even June yet. Why on earth would you cancel our reservation? Why are you giving me my money back?" And I said, "You know what? We felt like it was more important, A, to protect the ecosystem there on the vineyard, which is small. The hospital cannot handle an influx of cases. I think they're up to just under 20. And, if the summer residents were allowed to go on the island, it would cripple that entire economy." And then I said, I'm quite frankly, this was before Governor Baker actually provided the rule that only essential first responders can come. I said, "We're worried that you won't even be able to get onto the island." I said, "First of all," I said, "secondly, we want to protect you. And then we'll give your money back so you can make your own decision as to whether you want to go ahead and try to book on Martha's Vineyard or go somewhere else." Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess they understood it, they respected it. And then it's funny because we're connected with Facebook groups, that's how a lot of vineyarders communicate. And there was an all-out war as to what the right decision was, whether to still book and allow people to come over for the summer or to just shut down the economy. And we understand the ramifications of people who live on a summer economy and they live through the winter on that one season, and understand. But that's why, as much as people don't like the government up there because they're ruggedly independent, they understand that the PPP, EIDL, and their state emergency funding to help get them through. So, it's been a roller coaster. It's been kind of an interesting ride, but yeah, I think Ms. Spence is right.
Ms. Spence is right. Ms. Spence is always right.
Always right. Yeah, we had to make the decision that was best for the people who live there year round.
I love it. And I definitely
homeless population up there too. And you got to consider that. I mean, you consider homelessness everywhere, but just thinking about what the impact is going to have on that as well. So,
Stephen, you raised a great mom. Just have to tell you.
Yes, I agree. And Stephen, definitely we've been talking on the show about the PPE and so many other things. I would love for you to come back and talk a little bit more about that in depth. Now, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show, and what I like to do at the end of every show is just allow my guests the opportunity to speak to our audience who's watching live, as well as everyone who's watching the archives, and just let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance. So we're going to start with Nikki.
Let me encourage you. First, start right with yourself. During this time, what are ways I can grow as a person? What are areas of my life where where I'm vulnerable and need to be just growing? But whether it's physical, mental, emotional, invest in those areas of personal growth, and then branch out. What can I do to better serve my family? What can I do from there to reach my neighbors? What can I do to serve my community, my church, ultimately God? And so don't pull back, but pray. And there we have a prayer movement we're part of. It's called WePray247.com, and you can sign up to be praying. There's another group, 714, every day at 7:14 in the morning, 7:14 at night. You set your alarm and you join literally millions of people that are praying. 7:14 goes for 1 Corinthians 7 or 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people humble themselves and pray. And so God will hear your prayers. God is now here.
Yes, he
will. Amen. I love it. Danny.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of going back to the positive, we talked about earlier, mentioned that a lot of business ideas, they don't happen. People have them in their heads and they don't start them. But during the last recession, 2008 to 2010, some of the companies founded included Uber, Airbnb, Pinterest, Venmo, Square, and Groupon. So I think, going forward, we have a great opportunity for some people that, have these ideas in their head. I think this kind of shows of how fragile life is. And, if you have that great idea, go ahead and get it out there. There's no more. Don't be afraid of it. We have so many things that we can worry about, but just that is something that you can control. So hopefully more and more ideas kind of come out of this. I know we're in a scary time right now, but as we come out of it, I'm hoping that we're going to be much stronger as a country and as a society.
Oh, I love it. Words to live by. Andrew, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so I would just say, kind of what Danny was talking about is start that idea that you have. It's one thing to be nervous and be scared about things, but embrace that fear for the moment, right? Identify what is causing that fear within you, address your vulnerabilities, and move forward, right? Use this time to grow. For small business owners and people who have that entrepreneurial spirit, understand that now is the time to be better, to kind of push the envelope, to change things that need to be disrupted. If you own a business, now is the time to pivot. How do you get better? How do you help those around you? One of the big things that I look forward to is seeing all of the people who embrace the fear of the unknown, especially as small business owners. It is difficult. It is hard to make sure that your staff is staying busy, that you're keeping the lights on, that you're keeping the doors open. But embrace that for the moment. Take it all in, and then continue to strive to get better every day. That idea of getting 10 times better every day, every week, every month, every year is what's going to push you. And always remember that we create our own path. We're the ones who can pivot. We can hold ourselves back, or we can push ourselves forward, and always be willing to build the right team that helps you. That's the thing that I look forward to, is all the team building that we're able to do now is going to really push my business. And I feel that it'll push everyone's business forward and really make a huge difference going forward. So
I think that's very important. Thank you, Andrew. Stephen, some words for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone here has, really touched on some of the things I probably would have touched on in terms of just the overall spirit. But I will leave this to the audience. It's not where you start, it's where you finish. And it's not about being trite. I like to look at the last sort of 10 years of my life as, sort of pre-10 years and post-10 years. And I think in the last 10 years of my life, I have really worked extremely hard to make sure I was lifting someone else up, and to really focus on improving the lives of community. And I think no matter what you do, there's nothing wrong with making a profit. There's nothing wrong with being successful. But as long as you put people first, I think you'll get all of the worldly blessings you could ever possibly want, but you will also get that personal satisfaction in knowing that you've given back. And I'm hopeful. I know that the country seems strained at the moment, but I just know that there is a brighter day. Out of this chaos is a brighter day coming, and it's already birthed itself. So I will tell everyone, remain hopeful. Check your resources when it comes to COVID-19, and stay diligent in what our physicians and our scientists are saying.
Amen. I love it. Brighter day. I almost wanted to sing there. Just felt the spirit move. I love it. Now, Miss Wanda Spence, we're going to end with you. I love during the show, you have that mother wit. So I know you're going to take us out with some words of wisdom to live by.
I'm so humbled, and I'm so thankful, and I'm so grateful to be a part of your show today. And I'm so thankful and grateful for being a part of these wonderful, strong men, and see the vision of what they have, because each one of you you're valuable, and you bring so much to the table, and God has blessed you. And I continue to hope that each one of you will continue to be inspired by God, because he's the one ultimately that we have to answer to, and allow him to continue to use those gifts in each of you. And because you're bringing you're bringing hope to people, and we want to be proactive. We don't want to be reactive. And you know how many times in our lives we have been reactive about everything? But let's learn to be proactive and plan and know what's going on. And we don't know what the future holds, but we certainly know that we have faith that there's a God that we serve. And I just pray that each one of you and your families are be lifted up, that your children are strong, that you are continuing to grow in what you have been gifted to do. And it's not about me, I'm learning, and I've learned it is not about me. It's about what we do, and it's about God first, and putting people and loving people, not being, and it's hard to love people, but I'm being commissioned to do that. And so I love you guys and I love you all. And I'm proud of my Mr. Stephen McDow over there, the corner. I'm proud of being a part of all of you all today. And I thank you. And I hope that we come back again, because there's so many subjects that we could talk about. There are so many. We touched on many things today: mental health, social issues, physical issues, the issues with the economics and what's going on in this world. So let's come back together and let's keep this thing going, because this is the way of the world. When we don't know what normal is going to be anymore, because it certainly ain't going back to where it was. So this is a new beginning for us. So let's stay encouraged, man. You be encouraged. And I love my mom. She's back over here in the corner listening. My mom is 91, and I tell you, she has been a pillar in my life, in my son's life, in my brother's life, and she will continue to be a pillar. And so I thank God for Mediel Spence.
Grandsons and great
That's right.
grandsons.
That's right. So anyway, but thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And
Sharifa, thank you,
Yes,
Sharifa,
thank
for
you.
having this platform.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. We saw your mom a couple of times. I just love watching the backgrounds as people walk around and move around. I'm like, that must be her mom. Hi, Mom. Thank you for being a part of the show. You are now in today's episode.
Wave.
Hi,
Wave it.
I'm waving.
No, they
Oh, they can't see me. Okay.
oh, there she is.
There she goes.
I love what I do. I always tell people I love what I do. I love to wake up and talk to so many people, meet new people. I definitely want the two of you, everybody, all of you, Andrew, Danny, Wanda, Stephen, Mickey, come back, join the show, because there are so many topics that we can discuss. I want to thank you all for being a guest on Monday's episode of the Roundtable Talk Show.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I also want to thank everyone who's listened live, everyone who is sharing the episode, everyone who's watching in the archives. I definitely appreciate your support, and I ask that you support the show and support our guests. Go to the description. You'll see their information. You'll see their website. Visit them, support them, follow them on social media, and say you saw them on the Roundtable Talk Show. And if you are interested in being a guest, please visit the website at asksharifa.com and click Be a Guest. Until tomorrow, I'm your host, Sharifa Hardy. Everyone have a safe and a blessed day. Bye now.